Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov. It's great to have you with us for today's eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and MarTech. Together, we'll learn how marketers can boost demand and deliver personalized experiences in today's financial services market. So before we get to that great content, let's meet my guests from Quad. We have Todd McNabb, Vice President of Client Strategy, who is joining us today from Chicago. Todd, nice to see you.
Thanks, Marissa. Thanks so much for having me. So excited to be here with you.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm so happy to have you with us. And we are also so happy to have all of you with us in our audience. I just want to remind you, today is going to be a really fantastic presentation. But in case you have questions, Todd's going to be here for a live Q&A in the second part of the show. So just use the chat window on the right. It'd be great to hear where you're coming from. But also, of course, if you have any questions to submit, we will do our best to get to as many as we can during the Q&A. So please keep those coming. All right, as promised, we have great content planned for you today. Todd, let's get started.
Great. Thanks again, Marissa. I am so happy to be here today, and I so appreciate the opportunity with eMarketer. I think this is going to be a great time spent together, and we're going to jump right into the topic, everybody. So again, today's webinar is all about simplifying disruption, demand, and data for all of us in financial services marketing. And to start us off, simplification is not something we often get to use these days in marketing. So we're going to try to get back to a couple of the basics and just a couple of grounding principles that if we keep reminding ourselves can help make our lives just a little bit easier on a day-to-day basis. So again, as a reminder, as Marissa said, I'm Todd McNabb. I'm a VP of Client Strategy at Quad. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to touch a bunch of different aspects of marketing in my role, right? I get to work with clients and prospects across the audience side of things and the data and marketing technology and strategy and analytics. And I love that part of my job, but I also love to sum it up by saying the best part about my job is helping the clients, the customers, the prospects I work with make the most of the investments that they've already put the money out there for and the time and the resources for. So being able to enact and enable all the things that we spend our day-to-day lives on and bringing those to life in a real sense from both a strategic and a delivery perspective is brings me great joy and hopefully brings a lot of success to our clients. So in terms of what we're going to talk a little bit about today, we're going to talk a little bit about Quad, but mostly about the frictionless marketing experience. We're going to think about straightforward ways to maximize what you're planning, how you go about your jobs on a day-to-day basis across a couple of key elements. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Quad and the role we play in the modern marketing marketplace, you got to love some alliteration to start a webinar, not like testing my tongue right off the bat. At Quad, we serve our clients with a holistic approach to their marketing. Whether they're working with our people and our teams and our professionals on a single aspect of their business, like creative or delivery, or we're their partner on delivering all aspects of the business. That approach, that kind of holistic thinking is embedded in everything we do. And so it ensures that all of those attributes drive client success. And we've been blessed, right, at Quad, being able to have this level of success, especially in the financial services space with so many talented marketers like yourselves. We have 100 plus client partners right now, crossing the banking and credit card, property and casualty, life insurance, financial technology worlds. We have 50 years of history just working with clients in this and across the different verticals that comprise the financial services space. And we have 600 team members really that make us special, unique, and different in terms of our ability to help clients, right? These are folks who are disciplined and grown up and have the expertise in the financial services world to be able to really deliver experiences for our clients that make a difference in terms of both what they plan, what they're able to create, what they're able to generate, and its success rate. And having professionals and having people kind of blow the wind in your sails, so to speak, we really all do really need a team of experts these days. It's really become increasingly difficult to deliver, right? It's a broken ecosystem, as the Harvard Business Review recently categorized it as, right? Only 30% of marketers right now are talking about how their marketing is very effective. And 66% of marketers believe that this complexity has made it really hard to deliver business value to both customers and then be able to internally tell their story. So that makes it really hard to do all the things that construct our job as modern financial services marketers, from the planning and the analytics gathering pieces, the data pieces of it, setting up the messaging, the production, and then being able to report back on what's working and what's not. It's very, very cumbersome. And the good news, though, is that in this same study, all of us as marketers still believe in ourselves, right? We're still confident. There's 89% of us out there who are like, you know what, marketing does play a really key role in my organization. I just wish it was easier. And that's what we're going to talk about, right? So this ability to deliver on a frictionless financial services experience for marketers. Customers have been clamoring for it. They talk to us about it all the time, qualitatively, quantitatively, all that unstructured data we get from customer service centers talk about how, gosh, you got to make this easier for me. Well, we as marketers feel the same way. But we've never been closer to this promise of individualized experiences in our vertical, in our ability to deliver a unique, specialized approach to our customers, to our prospects from a financial services perspective. The interesting thing, too, is that as we continue to kind of evolve as a marketing group in financial services, a lot of just the practical things that we get asked about now at Quad have less to do with the quantifiable metrics, the pricing and things of that nature. A lot of things we're seeing now, whether it's an existing client or a prospect or somebody we're just talking to at a conference or at a show, is like, qualitative. Can you help me do my job better? Can you help make it easier? You know, I'm not getting the insights I need. How do we get the campaign to market better? It's those kind of fundamental principles now that are coming to the fore because of that complexity. Because again, we're so close. Like us as marketers, we're trying to do the right thing. We really believe in what it is we're doing, and we want to be able to deliver those individualized experiences that customers and consumers, and frankly, us as marketers crave, and that we know we're so close. But how can it be done when the day-to-day realities of our business in a financial services perspective, and you all know what I'm talking about, right? The analytics pieces of it, legal, compliance, data security, digital worlds, physical worlds, all of them somewhat feel like they're fighting to inhibit our ability to be successful. So that's really what we're going to spend the next 20 minutes, a little bit more, maybe a little bit more than that, talking about today is how can we get back to those core values, those core simplification pieces that will help not only deliver for your customers, deliver for your prospects, also make our jobs a little bit easier internally so that management or the story you're telling is actually very easy to comprehend and is a straightforward approach and a straightforward story. That's what we're going to do today. So we're going to break through that complexity to deliver on those essentials. And we're going to do it in this kind of drumbeat of these 4 essentials that we like to lean on. Sincerely knowing your customers, scaling personalization, working with internal silos. I talked just a little bit about those already, right? Those are our reality and what we do, and the legal and compliance pieces and the data analytics teams and the different product groups and how we're all competing for the same customer. Those are realities that we all face inside a financial services market world. And how do we face that head on? And then ultimately, how do we deliver on a meaningful marketing measurement and experience for our internal audiences as well as our external ones from a customer and prospect perspective? So we're going to jump in. So we're going to start with sincerely knowing your customers. And in a lot of cases, right, you'll hear people talk all the time about knowing your customers. So we intentionally include the word sincerely. The level of sincerity that you bring to your customers and prospects as a marketer can help you differentiate yourself in the sea of sameness that often exists in our category, right? You have a lot of the same transactional and demographic data on the same group of consumers and prospects, right, across the board. But the level of interest you take in those people, whether again, they're your existing customers or prospects, can help you separate. So let's talk about how we do that and why it's so important. At the end of the day, even financial services decisions are based on emotions, right? And I included, there's a 90% number from a Nobel Prize winner. There's a 69% number up here from LendingTree. Whichever number you want to use, go for it. They're both correct. They're both backed by legal jargon, so they're both there. But we have access to all this incredible amount of data about customers and prospects. Yet the fundamental truth remains: even financial decisions are based on emotions. And we can spend, frankly, the entire webinar talking just about this slide and about the different generational impacts and all those kind of things. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about impact to individual generations. But just know this: there's a reason that 90% and 69% are such a powerful number. The Gen Z population still makes financial decisions, based on emotion. But you can see the numbers across the entire American ecosystem are even higher. So the baby boomer population, the Gen X population, the older millennials are increasingly making decisions based on their emotional well-being, their family situations, things of that nature. So the practical examples we bring oftentimes in the messaging side, or the way we target, or the way we model, are all extremely important. But there's an increasingly important overlay of the emotional component to making sure that you're reaching those people in a way that's meaningful to them. Because at the end of the day, human beings make human-based decisions, right? And everything that's wrapped into that, our gut, our instinct, receptivity to messages, all those kind of things are realities in how we fundamentally make decisions. So that's a grounding element when we talk about data, and when we talk about, because again, data is great, but people are better. Because we can know everything, and oftentimes we're blessed in the financial services space, right? We have a host of understanding about the transactions our clients make, or our customers make, or even the prospects make. We're blessed with their financial ability to pay, their where they physically reside, the demographics of them. But if we don't know how they feel, we're going to have a hard time reaching them. So we as marketers have to make sure that we're looking for that convergence point between the physical sense of needs and the emotional sets of needs. Thus, when you get into the room with your data analysts and there's discussions around the ease of getting to demographics or transactional data, you can go back to that statistical evidence on the last slide about, hey, listen, I appreciate that, but we also need to have attributes, behaviors, understandings, motivations around why our customers are behaving the way they are, because that's ultimately going to lead to our success and help us differentiate ourselves across the ecosystem. And this is a very commonly used approach. Some of you may have seen this in the past, but again, it just connotes the fact that you can have two people in the shadows here, Eliza and Angelica, who are essentially to us, essentially the same people, right? Based on their demographics and their transactional and their financial behaviors, right? They're 32 years old. They live in Albany. They make $90,000 a year. They have the same amount of debt, but their motivations are different, right? Eliza has a different set of needs. Her risk tolerances are different than somebody like Angelica, and all of those things help you deliver messaging that makes the most sense. We have a client right now who has a unique perspective on this, right? They're in the financial services space, and while they appreciate volume, which is tremendous for leads in their case, that's one of their key KPIs. They're really much more interested in people who are in the market, which again, we all know and love that, right? But who are in the market and are open to new providers. So it means using the means that we all know and love. So triggers and behaviors and all those kind of things. And then combining that with the 2 or 3 data attributes that are unique to you, that are your secret sauce in terms of your business, that might be indicators for you, that shows somebody, a consumer, is frankly ticked off, or they might need a more personalized approach that an in-person experience can provide, or that a chat bot can provide, or a webinar-based experience can provide. Or they're just frankly open to a host of changes. So those additional kind of emotion-centric attributes can not only help you distinguish yourself from the competition, but they help reveal things about your customer set that you can use to expand and know who you want to invest in going forward. And if you take the time to identify those within your data, you will have found a simpler manner to target, because you're focused on a couple of key demographic attributes and a couple of key emotional centric attributes that can drive your success and your business forward. All of that leads to the second topic for today, which is scaling personalization. Personalization is a topic that's near and dear to all of our hearts. A lot of us are CRM marketers on this call. We love good one-to-one marketing, regardless of the channel, and we all are chasing the ability to personalize at a scale that delivers this experience that, again, we talked about, that customers are longing for, and that us as marketers know is so close. It's just so right there, and it does start with the person in personalization. It starts with the audience. A lot of you may have seen similar charts or used them in your past as well, about the impact of what really drives conversion in a marketing sense. You cannot understate the over importance of audience in this realm. You have to know the person and where their motivation is. If you factor all the other, the creative, the offer, the cadence, all those things, they barely add up to be as oversized as the impact on audience. And so it just bears repeating that the statistics are overwhelming in terms of how important the audience is. So, well, again, all of us have spent the last 10 years in the big data environment, the big data world, accumulating data. And while data is obviously incredibly important, that resilient and a thorough data strategy about how you use the data you have access to, and understanding where your shortcomings may be in your data, is increasingly important as well, because of those reasons we talked about, that emotional context, those motivations, those attributes. So again, the link between your customer and personalization may feel pretty obvious, right? But the problem we all run into as financial services marketers, that we're all thrust into, regardless if you're on the client side, the agency side, it doesn't matter. How many times do we get pushed on a product launch or a product relaunch to take lower deciles, right, from a model, because we want to try to increase the reach of something, even though it might be to the detriment of the overall KPI? How many times do we expand our selection criteria just to get another couple extra thousand people in that audience group? Or how many times did we push maybe that little bit of extra couple thousand, 3,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever number of people into an email or a display channel, even when the uplift model you may have used actually showed that some percentage of that audience is actually more likely to respond to a different channel like direct mail. So all of those things are the realities we all face, right? They make our jobs very complicated. But we have to remember, we have to simplify in some cases and get back to the core foundation, which is, are we talking to the right people, right? Are we delivering the right things to that person based on their need set? If we ground ourselves in that, we'll be better off. Because the other reality that we face too, in addition to our own proliferation of data as on the client side, on the zero party and first party data, is that some of the data that we now have access to is frankly not as reliable as we would want, right? Online data, the proliferation of people with secure-based browsing systems and things of that nature, and I'll put the whole cookie discussion aside because there's plenty of webinars around cookies, but there are fundamentally people who are blind to us, right? They're in the shadows. So when you talk about display and social, those are shadows to us. And email is increasingly imprecise because you have 86% of the population with 2 or more email addresses, and you have more than 1 in 4 of us who have 4 or more email addresses. So the opportunity, and then you talk about the sheer scale and size of the saturation level for events as CRM or as one-to-one marketers in the financial services space. Just the pure volume makes it really, really difficult, right? The number of display ads, most of which are now under the guise of programmatic or targeted display, the average consumer, the average person sees 10,000 display ads on a daily basis. And that average person also sees 121 emails on a daily basis. Now, that feels a little light to me personally, but we'll each make our own determination on the number of emails we all get. But I think we can all say that there are a host of them, right? There are a ton of them. And we as marketers also have to realize that there are channels out there that if our audience is predispositioned to be more likely to respond to, like a direct mail, for example, where it's increasingly a clean playing field for those people who use mail, who their customers are likely to respond to mail, right? People are getting less than one mail piece a day in their mailboxes. Talk about an amazing opportunity to be able to connect with somebody outside of that sea of sameness that's existing in some of those other channels. That's the other reason, too, why you're starting to see a lot of investment being made in things like retail media channels and retail media networks, why organizations are being able to monetize those experiences from a retail media perspective, because you can deliver a very customized, dare I say, personalized experience in that realm. And household data as well, right? You'll be able to understand that's the grounding element for people now with all those emails that we have and with multiple devices that we take with us all over the globe. That household piece where you physically reside is also it's a resilient identifier, right? That touches real individuals, and it's not another faceless kind of marketing ecosystem. So our job at the end of the day is to help find those best customers in the best channels based on what their need set is. So, and we have to leverage a range of different channels and experiences for those customers. But the customers are the ones, or the clients, or the prospects, again, whatever your terminology is inside your organization, can help guide us to where those best decisions are. And often those decisions are based on something like a model, right? We just got done doing a model for an insurance company where we took 3,000 disparate of their clients and said, okay, how can we really deliver a customized experience across these universes with 3,000 people who seemingly feel and look and act so different, right? The best models are the ones that help you synthesize data in a way that you can compartmentalize and get to an experience that feels unique for the individual. In this case, right, we found across those 3,000 groups of people, 3,000 individuals, there were 3 segments that stood out. You know, the beauty of that is the focus they can give you. Focus in terms of channel, focus in terms of message, focus in terms of offer, focus in terms of experience and the cadence and the number of touches and all those kind of things. You can distill those disparate pieces into a way that you can compartmentalize the information and be able to deliver an experience that's simpler for you and simpler for your customers and feels very customized for them, very personalized for them. The thing we wanted to make sure we talked about too in terms of simplification and the modeling characteristics is listen, we all love a good multivariate model. We all want to be able to kind of maximize our investment in the time and resources and expenditure we put towards a model. But if your key metric is response-based, response models are are kind of a key driver for your audience, right? You want to understand who's responding, then that's where you go. You're interested in conversion? Great. Then a conversion model is where you should start and probably end with, right? To keep things simple. If you want to really understand the influx of where your audience is most likely to respond, then an uplift model makes a lot of sense for you, right? It helps your management understand why you're investing in the channels you're choosing to invest in. So, and again, this speaks to the fact that all of us over the last 20 years, right, we've compiled a massive amount of structured and unstructured data around customers and prospects. And in the financial services space in particular, mergers and acquisitions have really complicated our ability to link a single person's attributes together. And I have worked with clients who have upwards of 5 billion, that's billion with a B, records in a CRM database, and thousands upon thousands of transactions linked to those records. And what does that really deliver for them as a marketer? Honestly, a lot of headaches. This slide, and the reason we included it, and a lot of you are obviously very familiar with models and the impact they can have on your business, but the reason we included it is it's just as a core reminder of the core purpose of the model. And if your key KPI is linked to conversion, then that's where your focus should start, right? Oftentimes when you layer multiple models, you layer multiple attributes into a model, it can only make things more complex. And so you want to try to isolate criteria that you as a marketer understand, right? If that quantitatively perfect audience, do they really have the qualitatively perfect mindset for you to be able to make a difference and be able to get the right product to them at the right time? So if you see somebody who is in the right age, with the right financials and the right shopping behaviors to be in the market, and we ran into this a few years ago before the market kind of changed for auto loans. So it's going back 4 or 5 years, but the lesson is still appropriate. Is, we thought we had everything completely lined out, right? But we were missing key elements of the attitude and the motivation that was going to drive a behavior. In this case, we were missing eco-sensitivities to an audience that we thought was the perfect audience for an auto loan. So we needed to create imagery and messages that were relevant to them, so that we could get beyond the shadows that we see and that harken back, and that really illuminate who our key customers are, who our key prospects are, who those key targets are that we can reach. And in some cases, you're going to use modeling for that. In some cases, you're going to add to your data arsenal for that. In some cases, you're going to blend them together. I'd make the argument in most cases, you do blend them together. But third-party data sources can and should enrich what you're doing, right? There's the ability to make sure that you've got data that makes a lot of sense in terms of surveys or referral sources or web analytics or third-party analytics. All those things listed here can all help round out what you're looking at and what your data analytics team can actually pull from. Again, going back to those 2 or 3 key kind of business-related metrics and those kind of 2 or 3 key kind of emotional-centric metrics to make sure you're driving towards success. All that is great, but we still got the internal silos we all have to work with, right? And so we want to spend just a little bit of time talking about how we take those on. So this statistic makes me chuckle, not only for a couple of reasons, and I'll use this time to kind of go through it. So it says 31% of marketers are fully satisfied with their ability to unify customer data sources, and 32% of clients are completely satisfied with how they use customer data to create relevant experiences. I would love to meet those thirds of people, because in the clients I talk to, we're all frustrated by this, right? It's really hard to unlock data, much less than activate a physical campaign, regardless of the channel. All those things have made it increasingly difficult, because there is, as Salesforce itself points out, and this is the other reason this graphic makes me chuckle, is Salesforce has been a direct contributor to this, right? As has a lot of the MarTech solutions we all use, because it takes so many steps now to piece together the technology, to combine with the data, to combine with the assets, combine with legal approvals, to bring it to life. It's really hard, right? We face a significant set of challenges, including the struggle to maintain consistency and map complex journeys and address data security concerns and navigate an evolving set of regulations and get internal alignment, frankly, just on what we want to say and do, and manage the cost scenario and the return on investment that we're all trying to go for. So this is indicative of, again, that what we all see, even though our organizations may feel very unique to us, we all have these same set of challenges, right? We all have internal silos that make it difficult for us to physically get things done. So how do we do that? How do we break apart from that kind of disjointed experience? So first off, just a couple of quick thoughts, right? You don't want to get stuck. You want to start with small intentional tests, single threads around a single set of attributes they're going to drive to your business, right? We are all beholden to legal and compliance and risk and actuarial type of decisions. But not every initiative needs that level of scrutiny. So how do you manage against that, right? So how do you condense those timelines that have blown up now in some cases to 18 to 26 weeks? So keeping things simple, keeping things focused around a couple of key attributes with a couple of just key tests, even doing things like virtual testing can help make your lives that much easier and actually make it easier to justify a rollout or an additional investment because it's simpler for everybody inside the organization, regardless of their silo, to be able to see the impact it can have. You want to find partners who can help you surgically, again, we use that word purposefully, operationalize, again, purposefully, your data, because we all know how much data is out there. We've been talking about it for the last several minutes. The surgical part is incredibly important, and it goes back to what we just talked about. Again, don't try to be all things to all people. Find the 2 or 3 attributes that are most important to you that are going to drive your business success forward. That's the surgical component. And in that vast array of data we have access to across the marketing technology ecosystem we've all invested in, sometimes it can be hard. So it's really hard and important to find a partner who can help you surgically make precise decisions. And in the world of AI, make very good prompt, right? If you're using an AI technology as well, make really smart prompts to be able to enable that AI to bring to life insights that you think are incredibly important, not just from an understanding perspective, but here's the second point, to operationalize that data. At the end of the day, all of us as marketers are evaluated by how things work in the market. And so we've got to make sure that we're operationalizing whatever is the data audience that we've unlocked. And you want to have partners, you want to have internal partners as well as external partners who have that kind of surgical and operational mindset to benefit you. And then lastly, gosh, this seems very cliche, but I want to bring it back to this. Try not to do everything at once. Make incremental movements. And what do I mean by incremental movements? Here's a practical example of that. So we all know those departments I just mentioned, but we also know that oftentimes there's 3 or 4 of those departments that are most critical to you as a marketer being able to do your job. Let's say it's data analytics, it's somebody from the brand side, it's somebody from a reporting and metrics perspective, right? So we've seen a lot of success working with clients, working with prospects, working with customers to create little mini innovation teams, right? Incubators, if you will, that can take a campaign in its simplest format, find a way to find the right audience, execute upon it, deliver upon it, show the statistical relevance to your business as a whole, and then be able to carry that forward. Those little micro teams, those 3 or 4 people teams inside of large organizations or mid-sized organizations or small organizations can be empowered to take that and deliver it forward. Plus, it then catapults upon itself. And you can run 3 or 4 of those in parallel with each other, knowing that 1 may not be successful, 2 may be mediocre, and 3 may be off the charts really well. But you've got multiple teams, multiple initiatives working at the same time, and you've got small teams who are empowered to be able to move those forward. So that's about making incremental movements to your success metrics. And speaking of success metrics, we're going to finish up with this kind of core simplification conversation around how do we help find meaningful measurement, right, as marketers? Because attribution is really hard, y'all. It just is. It's a hard truth. We really collectively, as us as marketers, are trying to do the things the right way. We just are, right? We're trying to give every channel its appropriate attribution and every audience and every touch point the percentage of allocation it deserves. And we're constantly trying to determine which communication, which business line, which product unit gets the most weight behind something so we can all know where to invest. But gosh, that gives us some false flags, right? We end up struggling to find ways that things are different. We end up getting bogged down in some partial truths. Another practical example, again, going back to the auto loan side of things, all of our statistics, our ability to generate leads, and within our customer base for certain brands was dropping with a client. We checked the rates, we checked the customer experience, right? The online experience, the in-person experience, the type of customers we were targeting, everything. But at the end of the day, we had a blind spot. It was just the fact that we were targeting customers that had tendencies to hold on to cars longer. So no wonder they weren't taking our auto loans. And why were they holding cars longer? They simply like to shop. they wanted to know what was available. They wanted to know how much their car was worth. They like to look at the latest cars. The triggers we were using were creating false narratives around being in market, right? We had to know that our customers actually thought differently, that this group of people were different than that they liked to window shop, and that their vehicles were older, but they held on to them, but they just liked to see how much value they held, right? And they're just intensely curious by nature, right? Those are, again, going back to those kind of emotional attributes. They may not be readily apparent in things like triggers and transactional-based behaviors. We had to get back to basics to be able to identify those kind of key drivers of success. And so we adopt and use something we like to call the pick two rule around a heavy topic like attribution. So, I mean, I've worked with clients that have 10 or 15 or 20 different metrics related to their marketing campaigns, but while all of those are important, I'm sure all of them have a place in terms of the return on investment or return on ad spend or whatever metric they're trying to drive towards, prioritization and focus are increasingly important when trying to ascribe those specific success metrics. So one or two KPIs are really all you need to create a compelling, actionable business case. So we've listed some examples on this slide. If you're interested in sales or revenue or whatever your business is, whatever the product is you're marketing in the financial services space, we all know the intricacies of those products and the delivery systems and the experiences that customers have with those products. But pick the one or two attributes that are going to be the most important for you, because attribution feels very, very big. It feels very, very scary. Us as marketers sometimes wonder if we need a PhD, right, to be able to understand the nuances that exist in something as complicated as some of the attribution metrics that exist and the models that have to be used. And then you mix in the increasingly complex world of digital ecosystems and relational attribution. So, and we all also get tied up in dashboarding and the different things that Tableau can do for us. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I love a good Tableau dashboard. I can go really, really deep because there are an infinite number of variables now that we can report on. And that's terrific. But it becomes very, very difficult to really understand and report on what clearly worked. What action you need to take next, right? Okay, this did that. What comes next? How do you build upon it? And then what can you actually report to management on the success or failure or median state of a given campaign or program? So increasingly important just to keep things focused around the one or two metrics that you really are driving to your success metrics. And you can have secondary things, you can have reporting that shows all the rest of it, but your constant drumbeat from a simplification perspective should be around those things that are very clear and very evident in the success of the product, the campaign, and the business, and for your customers. So, in short, as we look at what we talked about over the last 35 minutes or so, it was all around simplification. The points you see here, the 5 points we've got listed here, we try to use these as we're planning. These help keep us balanced. So from a data perspective, make sure your data contains the tangible and emotional attributes that drive people to your product, right? Whether that's via modeling or adding to your insights or likely a combination of the both, right? Keep your attribution and business metrics centered on what are the pick two philosophy, right? Most important metrics to you, and ensure that you're reporting on those first and foremost every time, right? That is your constant, your frequency, to use that term from the brand advertising side of things, right? You are reporting on that frequently so that people begin to understand what it physically means. You'll also hear the term fail fast thrown around a lot, and there's certainly a time and a place for that. I prefer to characterize it as jump in, right? There's a host of virtual tools and market methods you can use at your disposal to get insights and information and results very quickly that are solid for you to build around, right? That you can get going within those incubation teams or those innovation teams, or even you as a single thread, right? And last, perspectives and partnerships and financial services are really valuable. They internally and externally, they help you kind of understand perspective. All of us think that our own individual circumstances are somewhat unique, but being able to have some outside perspective is really increasingly valuable. So we can all have that natural bias towards our own circumstances, but we really wanted to make sure that we keep perspective so that we're constantly learning. Because at the end of the day, not only when we learn, it helps our customers so that we're really seeing and knowing our customers, and that we're finding those unique ways to make a difference in their lives and for our business. So with that, I think, Marissa, we have a little bit of time to take some question and answers from all of our participants.
We do. Well, thank you so much, Todd. That was really fantastic. I was actually taking a lot of notes on your presentation because you had so much great insight. I mean, in addition to that data strategy, what also really resonated with me at the top of your presentation was the line that you said, human beings make human-based decisions, and really thinking a lot about how big of a role those emotions play in the process, and really using that data beyond that as well. You also had a great stat. I was completely not aware of this. 10,000 display ads on a daily basis are seen by consumers in 121 emails. I mean, that's a
crazy,
lot.
Right?
It's crazy. I mean, it really makes you think about all of the types of messages that are a part of these assets and what will resonate most with consumers. So all of those points that you brought up, like this, sincerely knowing your customer, personalizing messages to them, and then working through those internal silos, and of course the meaningful measurement, make a lot of sense when you think about all of the messages that we see each day. So thank you again for such a wonderful presentation. And as you said, let's get to those questions. Okay, Todd. So the first one for you is, what role do you see AI playing in simplifying the workflow for finance marketers?
Great question. Have we got another 45 minutes?
Yeah, we have to bring up AI, of course.
So the beauty of AI is that we as marketers have been using technology similar to that for the last multiple sets of years, right? It was a precursor to machine learning. Machine learning has evolved into AI. So none of us as marketers should be afraid of AI, because the beauty of what AI is going to deliver for us, regardless of the system or the format you use, internally based or externally based type of clients, what AI does, it allows your systems to be able to accumulate data together, and you can prompt it with questions that you think are relevant so that you can spend less time compiling together that data and more time analyzing it and studying it for the insights you need to be able to drive forward success in whatever success that is. So it actually does, at least in my opinion, AI will actually simplify our lives as marketers, because it's going to take that compilation piece away from our core teams and bring us back to the insight-based piece that I think all of us are driven towards.
All right. Well, thank you. Simplification was a big part of really your key takeaways. So it seems like AI is going to add to that as well.
For sure.
All right. Well, also at the top of your presentation today, you spoke about sincerely knowing the customer. So with personalization, where is the line between knowing your customer and being their friend, and then also being omniscient in a way that puts customers off? What do you think?
Another great question. And it's something that all of us as marketers, since the advent of first mail piece with somebody's name and the address, have had to deal with. And there's oftentimes a lot of people will go to the what Supreme Court says about pornography, right? I'll know it when I see it. And that's kind of, not to make that trite, but personalization is the same way, right? You have to use common sense as a marketer when it comes to personalization. Like if you have a long-standing relationship, you want to use the tenure as an attribute, you may have more ability to be able to deliver a more personalized message to somebody who's been with you longer, or has had a relationship with an agent or an advisor for a longer period of time, where they've given you permission to have that level of relationship with them, right? that level of personalization looks very different than the level of personalization with a net new prospect or somebody who's only been on your books for 6 months, right? It would feel, frankly, a little creepy to talk to somebody who's only been with you for 6 months about the baby they had and all the great ways you can help them with that, really coming at them with the hard and heavy kind of messaging around a life event. So you have to be cognizant of that level of relationship. Tenure is a part of that, but that's just the depth of that relationship too, because you can have a relatively short tenured relationship, but if you have multiple products within that relationship, all delivered through an advisor who's a trusted advocate and somebody you think very highly of inside the organization, you may have more ability. So again, I think it comes down to just understanding the attributes, emotion ones, as well as the tactical ones, and delivering something that from a common sense perspective that makes sense to each individual circumstance.
All right, that's a great point. Use common sense based on the circumstance. Okay, so Todd, so I'd love your take on some success metrics and benchmarks. So our viewer asks, when starting with a small scale data strategy, how quickly can you expect to see results as you work towards developing a more mature approach?
Gosh, in some of the ecosystems we see today, right? If you're using a really good targeted CRM display strategy or email strategy, right? You can get directional level of information back in a matter of days that you can use across those small audiences, and even some of the marketing technology that exists in those platforms and those systems will allow you to optimize your audience as those learnings are coming in. So if you have a system that allows for that level of customization, you can turn on that functionality inside of your system so that it's applying those learnings in a real-time environment as well. So again, some of that you can get very quickly. Obviously, some channels are not beholden to some of that, but what you're doing is even from those channels that may not have immediate gratification when it comes to response rates or conversion rates because your product and your channel are lengthier in nature, you can still get reads from things like deliverability, and you can get things from open and click rates. You can get reads from site behaviors. You can get reads from clicks on a QR code on your direct mail piece. All of those are early indicators you can use for success metrics that can help be fed into what you're doing behind the scenes on the next similar product or even the next generation of what you're trying to achieve.
All right, thank you for detailing that. Todd, we're going to take one more question today.
Okay.
You talked about pick two at the end of the presentation today. What criteria do you apply to pick two, knowing that there are often multiple stakeholders who all prioritize different interests?
That's thanks, Marissa. It's a great question. Here's Todd McNabb. Default is pick two for me is always one first one is campaign based, right? So am I trying to generate a response? Am I trying to generate a conversion metric? Am I trying to generate a lead? What am I trying to physically do with that marketing effort, that campaign, whatever terminology you may use? So set aside one of those pick twos for that. The other one is I traditionally look for a business related metric. So again, that differs by organization. It can be return on ad spend. It can be return on investment. It can be cost per lead. It can be maybe you're looking at lifetime value. Whatever the metric is for an existing customer, I would simply look at one business related item and one kind of campaign or a marketing effort related item, and have those be the two things you consistently report back on to your management as well as your internal team, so that you can show the impact you're making across those two key variables.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, especially detailing the pick two and your recommendations. Todd, this was so much fun to be with you today. Thank you so much for this great content. And thanks for answering all those great questions from our audience. It was, again, great to be with you.
Thanks, Marissa, so much. It was a pleasure.
So before we wrap up today, I'm just going to take a moment to tell you about what's happening across eMarketer's media channels. You can register for live analyst and tech talk webinars on our events page at emarketer.com/events. Don't forget to tune into Behind the Numbers, which is our eMarketer daily podcast. And finally, please subscribe to our newsletters. Thank you all for joining us. And thanks again to Todd, the team at Quad, and our eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.